Hello friend, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky and we are in week 4 of Pantry Challenge and we have running water again. Thank goodness. I'm so excited to get back in the kitchen and hang out with you in my own kitchen with running water. So I did buy one thing. So I have spent $6.29 on bananas over the weekend. So that's the first groceries I have purchased since January 1st. So I wanted to get that out of the way first so you know. If you're new, I am not going grocery shopping except for a little bit of fresh produce, and so far the only thing I have purchased is bananas. Now, I am normally not a huge menu planner, but this week, week 4, it's starting to become more of a challenge. And so I do have a menu written out for 2 reasons. One, I felt like my last week with no running water was chaotic, and I wanted to kind of have this week not be quite so chaotic. So the first thing I am making is some sandwich bread because for tonight's dinner, I have celery that needs to be used up and I have all the ingredients I need to make chicken salad. And I can make a good sized batch. We can eat it for dinner tonight and then we can have it for lunches. And I want to get my bread made for the chicken salad, and I also want to get my chicken salad made because we like to eat that cold. I'm gonna get some honey here actually for my bread instead of sugar. I'm gonna go ahead and just warm this a little bit and thaw it because it is crystallized. I need 1/3 cup. That's probably about 1/3 cup. My dad is on his way over for the afternoon. We're gonna finish painting the seed growing room. And so I want to have dinner prepped before he gets here so I don't have to think about dinner later. So I'm going to get my honey in with my yeast and I'm going to let this sit for just a couple minutes. And while that's sitting, I can go ahead and prep some vegetables. I need to wash my celery, cut a couple red onions, and I shopped my pantry and I have some relish here. I was watching this little southern lady make chicken salad and she peeled her celery. I have never done this before. You can see these peels come off. You just take your knife and get a little piece of that fibrousness and peel it. Look at that. I'm gonna take a quick second and do that to all my celery. Oop, I probably peeled a little bit too much on that one. So while I'm peeling this celery, I'm going to tell you what else we're going to have for dinner this week. We are going to have French onion meatballs served over mashed potatoes and chicken piccata served over orzo, a creamy orzo. So our vegetables are done. I'm going to set this aside and our yeast is perfectly ready to add the rest of the ingredients. I am following my bread recipe, but I'm making a few substitutions because I'm just using what I have on hand. I'm using the honey instead of the vanilla flavored sugar I have in my drawer right here. And then the biggest substitution is this right here. When I purchased this bag of flour, I thought I was getting white bread flour. It says 100% whole white wheat. In my mind, I was buying white flour, but this is whole wheat flour. And so I want to use this up. I've never made this bread recipe using, maybe this is white flour. No, this is whole wheat flour, I think. The ingredient says organic hard white whole wheat flour. So I want to see how well this recipe does using whole wheat flour. Josh and I love the flavor of whole wheat flour. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm gonna do 1 cup of just white bread flour. And the recipe typically calls for 5.5 cups of flour, but Because whole wheat absorbs more water than white flour, I'm gonna start with 5. We're gonna let this kind of absorb the water, and then I'll adjust and I can add more flour if I need to, but it's harder to add more water to bread recipes than flour. And the last ingredient is a 1/4 cup of oil and salt. I do not want to forget to add salt. You can do this in an electric mixer if you want. I'm just gonna do it by hand today. I probably should have done half whole wheat, half white. So it's a little bit on the wet side, but I'm gonna let this sit for a few minutes because I'm gonna let that whole wheat absorb some of that water. I'm gonna let the flour fully hydrate, and then I'll get in here and knead this with my hand. And if I need to add a little bit of flour or water, I can at that point. I let this sit for about 5 minutes. So now I'm gonna go ahead and start kneading it. It does feel still a little sticky. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some flour. I'm gonna use some bread flour here on my counter. I did clean my counters before we got started. Get this out on here. I don't wanna incorporate too much flour. So I'm just gonna start kneading this until a soft dough forms. What I could have done is done a ratio of half whole wheat bread flour to half white flour. But I bought a 10-pound bag and I want to use it before it goes bad because whole wheat does not have the shelf life that white flour does. And so I can make a note of what I did today, and if it turns out, then I can make, next time I make bread, I can do a little less whole wheat and more white, or if it turns out great, I could keep that ratio and try 100% whole wheat flour. I'm just experimenting here. And this is the bread, obviously, that we're gonna have with our chicken salad. Plus, this makes 2 loaves, so I'll probably end up putting 1 in the freezer. And I'm gonna show you how I prepare homemade bread for the freezer when I bake it first, so that it makes using it later when you go to thaw it that much easier. So I'm just kind of pulling some of that flour in as needed. No pun intended. We're basically making a honey whole wheat bread. I am happy with what this dough looks like. I don't want to work any more flour into it. It's nice and smooth and just the texture is perfect. So we're gonna let this dough do its first rise. I'm gonna grab a little bit more oil, put it in the bottom, turn that around so it doesn't dry out, turn it over. And then I've got a damp, warm cloth. I'm gonna put this over it and I'm gonna pop this in my nice warm oven and we'll get going on the chicken part of the chicken salad. I just grabbed my bowl that I'm gonna serve the chicken salad in, and I can get my vegetables in here. We'll just make the dressing and everything in the bowl. And I probably put a little bit more celery in here than I normally would, just because I wanted to go ahead and use it up. And I like the crunch and the flavor that celery has to offer. And I'm excited about peeling it. I think that's gonna be fun to see if that makes a difference. When it comes to the chicken that you put in chicken salad, you can really cook the chicken however you want. You could poach it, grill it, cook it in the oven. The way that I'm gonna do it and the way that I like it is I either like it grilled or I like it cooked in the oven, not oven, that's good too. But I like it cooked on the stove because I like a little bit of texture to the chicken on my chicken salad. What's really good too though, if you don't have time to actually cook the chicken, is using rotisserie chicken. We like that as well. So I'm gonna cut these chicken breasts in half lengthwise for 2 reasons. I find that chicken breast cooks more evenly when it's not so thick, and we're gonna be able to get a little bit more seasoning on the chicken because we're gonna have more surface area to season. So I'm gonna get these laid out, and I just have my seasoned salt here. that I'm gonna season these chickens with. I'm gonna go wash my hands real quick, and I'm gonna get my stove preheating. I've got my large cast iron on my stove, and I want that preheating so it's nice and hot before I put these chicken breasts in there. I believe my cast iron is nice and hot now. I've seasoned my chicken on one side, so I'm gonna take it seasoned side down. I like to put it seasoned side down so then I can go ahead and just season the other side when it's in the pan. I really like making chicken salad this way because like I said earlier, it kind of gives a really good crust to the chicken and some good texture, and it really maximizes the flavor, I think. And so this is just the favorite way I like to do it, but I know that there's 100 ways to make chicken salad. I love chicken salad. This is something I didn't grow up eating because my mom and dad don't like mayonnaise. And so the first time I had this, I think I was an adult, and it is probably one of Josh and I's favorite, and I probably don't make it enough. Now you can see how we've got this beautiful crust. I'm going to go ahead and flip it over, cook it on the other side, and we're going to cook all of our chicken. While the chicken's cooking, I'm going to get going on making the dressing. And if you were with me during week 1 of this pantry challenge, I made a potato salad, and the dressing was so phenomenal. I'm doing the exact same dressing I did for the chicken salad that I did with the potato salad. And the key was the zucchini relish that we made over this summer. The zucchini relish has sugar and vinegar and onions in it, and I think that's what helps balance the overall dressing. It was just incredible. So I'm doing 1 4-ounce jar of the zucchini relish and probably about 3/4 of a cup of mayonnaise and sour cream, just equal parts mayonnaise and sour cream. I like the addition of sour cream. I think it adds a nice zing, and I think it adds a different kind of mouthfeel to the dressing as opposed to just 100% mayonnaise. And then I added some salt and pepper and some garlic powder, and that was basically the dressing. So pretty simple. And then I do like the sweetness that you get when you put dried cranberries in chicken salad. I know a lot of people like to add grapes, but Josh and I's preferred kind of sweet bite to our chicken salad is dried cranberries. So now I'm going to go ahead and get this bread ready to do its second rise in the loaf pan. I've just oiled some parchment paper and I lined my loaf pans with the parchment paper. I took half of my dough ball, I'm flattening it into a rectangle, and then I'm going to roll this up. The flavor on this was absolutely fantastic. I do think next time I make this, I am going to do 1 part white bread flour to 1 part whole wheat flour. I think I might get a little bit better of a rise on it, but the flavor of this with the chicken salad was absolutely delicious. So I'm going to roll it up, and then I'm going to put it in my loaf pan, kind of turn the ends in, and I'm going to let it do its second rise. I'm going to do the same thing to the other one, and then we can bake this up once it is ready to go into the oven. The chicken is just resting now before I can cut into it and put it into our salad. So what I thought I would show you what the refrigerator looks like going into week 4 of no grocery shopping and how it looks pretty empty, but we're still gonna eat incredibly well, even though I haven't gone grocery shopping in really a month. So first thing, I got my milk delivery, so we've got that. That's what I've been putting in my coffee, and it's been working really well. In the refrigerator, we've got the breakfast that I prepped earlier today. There's about 2 servings left of the jambalaya, so we'll probably have that for lunch tomorrow. I've got some meat thawing. This is going to be for the chicken piccata. That is going to be for the French onion meatballs. A few condiments over here. We still have quite a bit of yogurt left, and this is for dinner tonight. These are all the eggs we have left, so I've been doing pretty good kind of rationing the eggs. There's no vegetables in the vegetable containers. We have some cheese left here. I need to use these avocados. That's one thing I do need to use. Now these limes look like they've seen better days, but I did cut into one, oh gosh, yesterday I think, and I put it in some sparkling water, and it's fine inside, but they do need to be used, so maybe I will make something with that the next day or two. Cheese, this is the Gruyere. I bought this for a holiday recipe and I didn't use it, so we're gonna use that in the meatball recipe. And then you can see there's very little when it comes to fresh produce. I've got lots of condiments in the drawers. In my outside fridge, I still have a ton of carrots from the garden, and I have more cheese out there, and that's about it. So I have, though, things in the freezer, things in my pantry that we're gonna be able to draw from and still make some really incredible meals this week. And I'm really excited to get in the kitchen and to be able to use up some of these goodies that we spent the last year putting up for just the time as this. So this bread is almost ready to bake, but I need to preheat my oven. So I'm gonna take this bread out, let it finish rising on the counter while we preheat the oven. I like cubed chicken in my chicken salad, so that's what I did. I cubed it pretty small. I'm gonna mix this together, cover this bowl, and put this in the fridge and let this kind of just sit, chill, and marinate together. And we're gonna eat this for dinner. And I am looking forward to this. I haven't made chicken salad in a long time. I do need to taste it to see if it needs any seasoning. I didn't add any salt to the dressing just because I put salt, seasoned salt on that chicken. Perfect. Our bread is ready to go into the oven. My dad is going to be here in 45 minutes. So while this is baking, I'm gonna go change and I'm gonna go head out and work on the project that my dad is gonna meet me here to work on. Dinner is now done. So I will show you what this looks like coming together, the bread and the chicken salad. Hi friend, welcome back. It is Wednesday evening and we are getting ready to make dinner tonight. I've got everything out I need, I think, to make chicken piccata with a orzo and green beans. And so what I'm gonna do is I've got my chicken thawed here and I want to make these chicken breasts a little bit thinner. So to do that, the first thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and cut them in half lengthwise, just so that they're a little bit thinner to start with. And then I've got my meat tenderizer here and we're gonna use that to make them even thinner. I've got the pieces that I cut here. I'm gonna go ahead and get some butter melting and my pan preheated. While the pan's preheating, I wanna get some flour ready to coat our chicken with. I just have some all-purpose flour and I'm gonna put some seasoned salt in here. This has garlic, paprika, pepper, and that's what I'm gonna use to season the outside of this chicken. I also added some oil to our pan. I need to turn this down just a little bit. And I'm gonna take our chicken, I'm gonna put it in the flour mixture on both sides, and we're gonna get this into this pan. And while we're cooking our chicken, I'm gonna go ahead and get going on our sides as well. In this pot, I need to get my chicken on here real quick because my pan's really hot. This dinner was absolutely incredible, and I guess went from not wanting to make any dishes last week to using every pot and pan I have. Not really, but we did end up using 3 pots. This is a 100% stovetop dinner, and as I was making this, I was thinking, you know, I probably could have made the orzo in with the chicken and done more of a 1-pot meal other than the vegetable, the green beans that we are going to make on the side. But I hadn't really thought that through until I already started cooking the orzo. But next time I make this, I think I'm going to try to adapt this recipe a little bit so that I can make the orzo in with the sauce. But I'm gonna have to think a little bit more about that. So here we've got our chicken nice and browned. I've got 2 more pieces I need to cook up. This is one of those recipes that makes a fantastic lunch, and so I do like to make a little bit extra. So while that chicken is browning, I'm gonna get some of our green beans from the garden cooking, and these turn out so good. They're not the prettiest green beans ever, but with the piccata sauce over the top, absolutely delicious. So now I've got my chicken broth. I needed a little extra water, so I put that in there, and now we're gonna get our orzo cooked with chicken broth and some water. I let my butter get way too hot in this pan, so I went ahead and I removed the butter while I was browning the chicken. And I'm just gonna add some fresh butter so that we've got a nice flavor for the base of our sauce. So once this melts, then we can go ahead and add the white wine, which I actually need to go ahead and open this bottle right now. I love this wine opener. It's so easy. You just hold it in place, screw the top, and the cork comes out. So this butter is looking perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and get my garlic in there. Saute that for about 30 seconds. Oh my goodness, that already smells incredible. Now we're gonna add our wine, about a cup of that. Gonna let that cook down. So now I'm gonna add the cream. I'm out of fresh cream, but I have this cream that I get at Trader Joe's. I'm gonna put 2 cartons of that in there. Add a whole jar of capers. I'm gonna season this with some salt, pepper, and I'm gonna let this thicken up a little bit and cook down and reduce. Gonna add some Parmesan cheese I've already grated. Now I'm gonna nestle my chicken in the sauce. And turn that down. I don't want that to be boiling so hard now that the cream is in there. We're gonna let this chicken finish cooking in the sauce. And I wanna get any of those drippings in there as well. I'm gonna get the lid on this, and this needs to simmer away for a good 10-15 minutes. We need our chicken to cook all the way through, and we need our sauce to thicken up and richen up. This makes a delicious, white, creamy, rich, decadent sauce that goes really well over any kind of pasta. Well, not any kind of pasta. I don't think I would want to do like a rigatoni, but I usually serve this with like a fettuccine or some sort of flat, long pasta. But I had this bag of orzo I wanted to use, so that's why we're using orzo today. But it would be really good over mashed potatoes. I have never made this with mashed potatoes. We're having mashed potatoes for dinner tonight. That's why I decided to serve it with the orzo. I need to give this a taste test. It's been simmering for about 10 minutes. I always forget how quick this dinner comes together. Incredible. So incredible. So dinner is gonna be really easy to dish up. We have our orzo here I'm gonna put on the bottom, along with some garlic green beans. I did put some butter and garlic on these green beans as well. The best part of this dinner. Before I call my family in for dinner, I do want to taste this sauce with the orzo because I think this is going to be delicious. So good. I just got back from the garden. I haven't been out there since we had that crazy ice storm. And the only thing that's alive is exactly what I needed for tonight's dinner. Everything else did not make it, but that's okay. We got time. That's what we're gonna use. So I'm gonna grab my potatoes and my wash time. And tonight what we're gonna have is French onion meatballs over mashed potatoes. And it's gonna be easy because I have some caramelized onions that I pulled out of the freezer. Now I should have probably pulled them out a little bit ago. I forgot, so I just put them in some warm water. So the first thing I'm gonna do for tonight's dinner is actually get my potatoes going. I think this is what's gonna take the longest. So I'm gonna get these potatoes that I washed already and peeled, cut into smaller pieces, throw in potatoes, so I'm gonna have to wash that one, and we can get this on the stove cooking. If I missed a spot, I can just go ahead and cut that off. The first part of our dinner is done, so now we're gonna get going on the meatballs. All right, so we're making breadcrumbs in the blender, and I did not realize I had it turned on, so I'm gonna turn that down and get this going. I made bread earlier in the week, and I was going to freeze it, but we've been using it for sandwiches at lunch and things, so we're gonna go through all of it this week. It only has a little bit left, but I took the heels of one of the loaves of bread, and I'm just into fresh breadcrumbs, and we're gonna use this in the meatballs. Now we're gonna make our meatballs. I've got 1 pound of ground beef. I'm gonna put about half those breadcrumbs in there. That was a whole wheat loaf of bread, that's why that's brown. And we're gonna put 1 egg, salt, pepper. I've got garlic here, 1 of those. We're gonna use the other bit of garlic for another recipe. Parsley. And then I'm gonna put just a little bit of thyme in the meatballs. The rest of the thyme is gonna go into the sauce. Now I'm gonna get in there with my hands, the easiest way to do this, and I'm gonna mix this up. I almost forgot one of the most important aspects, and that is the caramelized onions. So I'm gonna mix that in there. So I just grabbed a plate out because we need to form these into meatballs, and I need a place to set these meatballs once I start shaping them. I'm gonna shape this into meatballs, and the meat already smells so delicious. Now, the way that this original recipe is written is on the stove. The first thing I would do is not make the meatballs, but would be to make the caramelized onions. Well, I already had that done, so I didn't have to go through that step. So if you were to follow the recipe as written, which will be linked down below, you would caramelize the onions in the pan first, save half the caramelized onions for the gravy that we're gonna be making to go over the mashed potatoes, and the other half would go into the meatballs. But we got to just go ahead and skip that step. And you could make these meatballs as big or as little as you want. Could get out a cookie scoop and use that as well so that you know that they're even, but I'm just going in like this. These are pretty healthy size meatballs. We were able to get 17 meatballs out of that 1 pound of meat. So I'm gonna go ahead and heat this oil up until it's nice and hot. We're gonna cook our meatballs and make our sauce right in this pan. This is also the pan where if you needed to caramelize your onions in, you would have just go ahead and do it in this pan. My oil is hot. I just ran downstairs to the pantry to grab some chicken broth. You could use beef broth or chicken broth when making the gravy that we're gonna make, but I just grabbed chicken, so that's what I grabbed. Normally when I make meatballs, I put them in a 400 and something degree, usually like 425 degree oven, and I blast them in there so that I can get browning easily on all 4 sides. But I want to build flavor in this pan, and so I'm choosing to do this in this pan so that I build that brown crust on the bottom of the pan, and I can use that brown, delicious umami flavor in our actual sauce that's gonna top our potatoes. Oh, see, look at that beautiful color on there. That is awesome. Oh my goodness, that's exactly what we want to see. And I'm rotating my pan because my oven is not even, so that I get even cooking on it. These were fresh breadcrumbs, meaning they weren't dried out when I started, and I don't have any plans to use breadcrumbs the next day, so I don't want these to go bad, so I'm just gonna put these on a cookie sheet and put them in a 350 oven for about 15 minutes, and then I can put them in the pantry and they'll be good for later use. These are already browning on the second side. You can see that, so I'm gonna go ahead and rotate them if I can and try to get them to brown on a third side. This can be a little bit tedious, that's why I like to do this in the oven. But in this case, I'm gonna do it on the stove. The original recipe I'm getting inspired from did not call for spinach, but I have this in the freezer and I wanna use it up, and this is gonna be our vegetable. So I just drained and squeezed out any of the excess liquid of a 10-ounce bag. And then my cheese shredder is in the dishwasher. So I just put in my Gruyere cheese and I blended it in the blender since I had already done the breadcrumbs in there. Grabbed some flour out and some other ingredients we're gonna need to make our sauce. And I think these are done, so I'm gonna go ahead and get these out of the pan. These are absolutely beautiful. And we need to make our sauce in this pan. Look at the color on those, perfect. So we're gonna keep that oil in the bottom of the pan and we're gonna use that to make our roux. But first I'm gonna go ahead and saute my garlic in it. So I have 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. I'm gonna start with that, cook that for a minute. Now I'm going to do 1 cup of dry white wine. I'm going to let that cook for a minute. And I'm going to use that liquid to scrape up the fond on the bottom of the pot that we worked so hard to build. That's just pure umami flavor. Now I'm going to put 2 cups of chicken broth. I'm going to turn the broiler on. And this is the optional ingredient. You don't have to add spinach, but this is going to be the vegetable. So we're going to get that in there. We're going to add our caramelized onions. And turn the heat up. I think I'm going to do 1 more cup of broth because of that spinach. I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce in here. Now I'm going to nestle my meatballs back into our sauce. And I'm going to turn the heat up and let this start to thicken and cook it through. I just tasted my broth and it needs some more seasoning, so I'm going to go ahead and go in with some black pepper and some seasoned salt. And I'm going to mix that in. I'm going to add some Parmesan cheese. I'm going to mix the Parmesan cheese in, and our potatoes are done, so I just drained those, so I need to get those back in the pot. Didn't have quite enough Gruyere cheese to cover the top, so I'm going to put some Parmesan cheese on the top. We have our oven preheated. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a taste test. It smells incredible in here. And of course, the spinach is 100% optional. If you want a smoother gravy, then go ahead and leave the spinach out. But you can see all those caramelized onions. This is piping hot. You can smell the Gruyere and the Parmesan and the richness of the broth and the wine. So yummy. It's too hot, I can't eat it yet. So I'm gonna set this down for just a second because it's so piping hot. Today is Thursday. Tomorrow, we have enough stuff in the fridge that I don't think I need to do any cooking. And Saturday is a big family birthday at my parents' house, which I'm doing a bunch of the meal prep for, and I've already done some of it. And so Sunday, in my head, was the last day of the pantry challenge, even though it's not the last day of the month. We started this pantry challenge on Monday, and we've done 4 full weeks, and the end of the month isn't until next Wednesday. Today is Thursday. In my head, I just had 4 weeks I needed to do this pantry challenge. And so I think that this is the last week of the pantry challenge for me. It was today when I was planning next week what I'm gonna be doing that I realized that Sunday is not the end of the month. But for me, this is the last pantry challenge meal I am gonna be making, and I'm gonna go shopping on Sunday because that means we've done 4 full weeks, start to finish pantry challenge, where I've done no grocery shopping other than the bananas that you saw and then my weekly milk delivery. And so this has been a fantastic pantry challenge. Now I am planning my Valentine's Day cooking and candy extravaganza, and so I need to go grocery shopping, and I'm really wanting some fresh greens. The greens out in my garden are mush. They have completely frozen solid, and so they are no longer a thing. And so I just want to say that this was the last meal during 2024's January pantry challenge. So let's give this a try. That is rich, that is decadent, that is creamy and sweet and savory and absolutely a winner. The meatballs in that are so incredibly tender. I am so excited for my family to dig into this meal. Yesterday's meal was incredible. The chicken salad was divine, and it has been just another incredible week of meals. This is how I cook. I do not cook every day of the week because we are only a family of 3. And so if I cook once, we can enjoy that throughout the week. So thank you so much for being here as we spent 4 weeks cooking out of our refrigerator, pantry, and freezers. It's been fantastic. I have gotten some things used up that I wanted to get used up. I still have that drawer in my freezer where I've got things that I want to use up. I think I'm going to implement that moving forward. I think I want to keep an area in my pantry where I've got a little area where these are items that I want to use up. Same with my freezer, just so that those things don't get buried in the pantry or buried in the freezer, and I'm just more aware. I want to be a good steward of what I have in my kitchen, and that's what the pantry challenge helps teach me. I want to thank Jessica at Three Rivers Homestead for hosting this challenge that she does every year. This is the 3rd year I've participated, and it has been loads of fun, and we've used up a lot of things, and we've made some incredible recipes. If you're new around here, please consider subscribing, because the next thing we're going to be doing are cookies and candies for Valentine's Day. We're going to be making some more incredible meals. We're going to go shopping together. We're going to be doing a big party at my parents' house. So if you are new, please consider subscribing. If you've been here before, thank you for coming back. I so appreciate you. If you enjoyed this video, I'll pop some of my other videos here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. And friend, I can't wait to see you next time.